Good evening. The Galloping Hooves today were on at Randwick at headquarters. Look, for what it's worth, I didn't say a few words about last Saturday's meeting at Rose Hill, where, gee whiz, everybody's commenting. As I was leaving the track today at Randwick, I was talking to a colleague, and at Randwick today, we had it's more like a race meeting, although it's a bit of a pub crowd there. But at Rose Hill, as I've been commenting the last couple of meetings there, the Rose Hill meeting on Saturday of late has been very, very unattended by punters. Last Saturday there was a meeting on at, there were two picnic meetings on in New South Wales, one at Wigan and also in Gonia. They had more people at the two picnic meetings than they did at Rose Hill. And at Rose Hill last Saturday, the track was good. The rail was 3 metres out, and the closest a leader got to winning last week at Rose Hill was, I suppose, this horse has improved a lot. Some might say that it's always had ability, but I didn't have much of an opinion of it, and that was in race 5, Black Jag, where it failed after taking the lead out of the back straight in that 1900 metre race. It only failed by 0.3 of a length. The winner coming from last, Sabre Trofino, the import trained by Peter Snowden. But Black Jag, as I say, it was the closest a leader got to winning, only going down by the 0.3 of the margin. The wind, before the first race, it was a very strong breeze, a little bit northwesterly, but then as the day went on, it became more directly out of the west, and by the time the last race came along, it was fairly strong. The second last, well, it eased a bit. Funny thing, it eased a little bit races 6 and 7, but then race 8 came along and it picked up again. So when the leaders were running down the side, they were running directly into the wind, which wouldn't have helped them at all. And as I say, well, just looking at it, the first winner came from, in a small field, from second last. The next winner, it sat 3 or 4 back on the fence space, got around their heels, had cover. Wonderbolt, it was absolutely trotting in the run, Wonderbolt. When they were coming down the side, there was only one runner that wasn't, well, not off the bit, but it was travelling a lot better than any other runner, and that was Wonderbolt. And it, when it got to the outside, it just ran away. The leader in that race, Hot Hit, gave in fairly quickly. It's only fairly average anyway. And then we saw in race 4, the ride of Blake Shin on the Wendy Walter trained I've Got the Looks was a pearler. He didn't. He might have been didn't want to run into the wind with this little horse that hadn't trialled, of course. It was nice and fresh, and he drew barrier 8 in a field of 8, and after they got a couple of furlongs, he was running last on the fence. He just took hold of it at the start and went back to last on the fence, was held up for a long time after turning for home. When the split came, it showed a very good turn of foot, sprinting too good for Christy Lee, who sat back with wind cover, having every possible chance. and coming from last in that race, or on the outside of the winner, was Fine Bubbles, but the winner was the best run. I've got the looks. Again, emphasising the win cover. Race 5, that was the race where I was saying earlier on, where Black Jag led and was the closest leader to finish closest to a winner all day. It only got beat the 0.3 of a length, but the winner came from last. Was doing nothing down the side, but when it got to the outside, that wind told on the leaders. The next runner sat midfield. There was a bit of a break in the field. General Life, it absolutely trotted in race 6. It won like a, even with the wind cover, it won like a 5-4 chance. And it was very well backed, General Life, 13-2, $7.50 into $6, fairly hard to get towards the end of betting. And then we saw in race 7, Casual Choice, sit back in last position on the fence, never went around a runner, got right along the 18 pence, following the favourite through, Cradle Me, who sat directly behind the leader, who was Zaratone, who ran into the wind, and they were able to Quinella the race. The winner was very well backed, Casual Choice, after opening up $6, got out to $9 as we know, and only started about $7 into $6 at one stage, 5-1, but got back out to 7 towards the end of betting. And Zaratone, well, at one stage in that race, Zaratone, they'd kill you for $4.20. I think I laid 6,400 to 2,000 at one stage at the $4.20, whatever you wanted. But then at the end of betting, you couldn't give it away, and I was $6 at the end of the betting was Zaratone. I might have laid 5 monkeys about it as they jumped, but without winding it off. I suppose I might have been lucky to get that. And in race 8, the last race that day, well, the leaders ran into the wind, of course, and we saw You'll Never, who started favourite and was extremely well backed in the last few minutes of betting, firming from about $3.70 into $3.20, very hard to get. It beat Ideal Position, who was positioned very well right behind the pace in about 4th position, not leaving the fence, but had wind cover. The runners that ran into the wind there were Wild and Proud, who ran last. It was a 50-1 chance anyway, and on its outside was In Peril. Both gave in very quickly, as did Longshoreman, who was the second favourite in that race last Saturday. It gave in very, very poorly. Didn't give a yelp after having every possible chance, sitting in 4th position with a lot of cover. So as going back to that meeting last Saturday at Rose Hill, it was better if you were not leading on the fence. You were affected. Now, of course, last Saturday we had the provincial meeting at Newcastle on the 5th of July. The track was good. The rail was in a normal position. As the day went on, well, the first race, Gay had the favourite, Guitarist, started 2-1. Well, no, it started 13-8 favourite, and it won like a 2s on chance. Went straight to the lead. Gay owns the lead. Went straight to the lead, and coming to the turn in a 2,300 metre race, it was 4 lengths clear. It kept on going. It won by 2 lengths, and it was 6 lengths away to the third horse. It was the only, there might have been another runner, but it was the one that led all the way, the leader to win all the way that day. And as the day went on, the wind became stronger at Newcastle. There was a runner in a 900 metre race. What was it? Ike's Legacy here, who had barrier 1. It sort of snuck up on the inside of them after they turned for home and went away and won. But and that was race 5. But the last 3 races, the wind became stronger, and it was evident that it was better to come off the pace, as did the last winner, Solitaire Princess, who came from last position down the outside to win, and the second last winner, Melman, who was a clear last, strung right out in an 1850 metre race, turning for home, was in last position, hooked widest and came down the straight where the leaders were affected down the side on their run to the turn. And as I say, the wind became stronger at Newcastle last Saturday, and when you're doing the form, it was a bit easier to swoop. So when you're doing your form, you'll have to allow for that. We went to Kembla Grange on Tuesday, and on Tuesday at Kembla Grange, the track was good. The rail was 3 metres out, and the track, I thought, played very fair. There were leaders that won, and there were runners that came off the pace. There was a good stiff breeze that was out of the southwest, and I suppose it did have a slight effect on leaders, but as I say, there were leaders that were still able to win, and as I say, repeating myself, the track, I thought, played very fair at Kembla Grange on Tuesday. We went to Canterbury on Wednesday, the 9th of July, where the track was good. The rail was 6 metres out, and there was a very strong breeze, more or less behind them up the straight, slightly out of the southwest. So they were running into it down the back straight, but as I say, being slightly out of the southwest, down that back straight is not as severe as it is if you're going out of the home straight and then turning into the back straight, because it's more exposed. That back straight with the tree cover and so forth, as I've explained before, gives the runners a bit of a windbreak. And at Canterbury on Wednesday, it wasn't a greyhound track as it can be. The rail was 6 metres out, as I say, and there were leaders that won, but there were most certainly runners that came from behind. The track played a little bit fairer than it generally can be when it plays very leaderish, as we know. But on Wednesday at Canterbury, you could say that it was most certainly not a disadvantage. It was most probably an advantage to be on the fence, but it didn't give you that big help as it generally does when the track is on fire towards the fence. You've only got to go back and look at the results, and it's quite plain to see. Then we, of course, had the Grafton Cup meeting on, the morning was on the Wednesday, the same day as Canterbury, and on both days, the morning Cup meeting on the Wednesday and the next day, this Thursday just gone, the track was good, given out good both days, and the rail stayed in the same position, the normal position. On the first day at Grafton, the wind was more or less out of the northeast, and maybe slightly against leaders when they were coming down the side turning for home, but that didn't stop plenty of leaders winning. So I would suggest that you would, when you're assessing this meeting, you say that the track played fair, no disadvantage to the fence, and if there was pace on, you could most certainly run on, and that's exactly what happened on both days. Both days there were leaders that won, and there were also runners that came from well back in the field. On the last day, they in the Kirby, the sprint race, the leader, the runner that won at Randwick at the start before, Texan Lad, it led on the fence, and the winner came from last in the 1,000-metre race, hooking off heels, turning for home. I'm talking about Idle Chat, and grabbing grabbing the second, the favourite and the second pick close to the line. So, as I say, you could lead or come from behind on both days. It all depended on your ability and the pace of the races. Well, there are plenty of tales out of Grafton, of course, over the years. I haven't been going there the last few years, but going back, in the early 70s, the very first year I ever went to Grafton, I drove up by myself. I'd heard so much about the meeting, travelling all right at the time, and drove up and had a good look at the meeting. I was driving, I remember clearly, I was only a young man. I was driving into the town, and it was, it would have been, going back, trying to remember, but at least midnight, if not a bit later, or maybe just a little bit earlier. And coming into the town, looking for I hadn't booked in anywhere, and looking for a place to stay. I passing some motels coming to town, saw no vacancy, pulled into a couple of them, hoping that that wasn't the case, but and after waking a few of the proprietors up, no, I'm sorry, we're fully booked, pulled out of a couple of motels. Next thing you know, a nice policeman came up behind me, flashed his lights and pulled me over. I said, now what have I done wrong here? Got out of the car. He said, yes. I said, well, anything wrong here? He said, yes. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking for a place to sleep. He said, son, he said, you won't find anywhere to sleep in the town. He said, you best go. He said, there's a community hall down the road, or wherever it was, or he might have even said the church. He said, I forget. He said, you're best staying there tonight. He said, because you will not get any accommodation whatsoever anywhere in the town. He said, it's fully booked. I said, gee whiz, I'm in a bit of strife here. So I drove further along where you come to the main street of Grafton, turned right, went down the middle of the town. Of course, everybody knows the pub, Wiley's pub. He used to run in the sprint race. They used to have a handicap sprint race at the Dogs in between the at the night time, and of course, Wiley, old Wiley was a fairly short, chubby man. He was very well handicapped each year, and this year he actually won the sprint race. I think he was only off. Well, he started at the top of the straight, or a little bit around the top of the before the straight, and he was a fairly elderly gentleman at the time. The favourite was well back handicapped behind him, but he managed to win the race that year. But anyway, I'd parked my car around the corner from Wiley's pub. It was the 90-degree parking, 45-degree, whatever it is, nose to the curb. There was a park opposite. I walked around the corner, and of course the bars all locked up and whatever, but there was the big open foyer of the pub, and hello, anybody? Well, no, couldn't raise a soul. Next thing, there's of course a phone. There was a phone in the foyer. I looked up the number of the pub, and put the whatever I put in, the shilling in or whatever, and of course the phone rang upstairs, and I could hear it ringing. I'm downstairs. Hello? Yes. I said, I'm looking for a room. Oh, where are you at? I said, well, you're upstairs. I can hear you. He said, where are you? I said, I'm downstairs. He said, I can hear you as well. I put the phone down. He looked over the balcony, and there I was standing there, and he had his pajamas on. He said, he said, well, where have you come from, son? I said, well, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know where I've come from because I'm a bloody dope. He said, well, what do you want? So I just said, I want somewhere to sleep. I'm just driven from Sydney. He said, well, Jesus. He said, well, you got your bag? I said, yeah, I've got a bit of thing here. He said, well, come on up, you cunt. I went upstairs. And by the time I got up there, he had a blanket in his hand. And he threw it, when I got to the top of the stairs, he threw it at me. He said, there. I followed him down the hall, and we got to the end of the hall. And he said, open this door, and it went onto the balcony at Grafton. Went onto the balcony at Grafton, and there was one of those old cane things with a few whatever, pillow things on it. He said, there's your bed for the night. It was very, very mild, luckily, and I had a great night's sleep on the balcony. Got up the next morning, had a nice what he said, showed me where the bathroom was before we went out there, and or he might have told me, whatever the story was. I washed the next morning, had a shower, got dressed. He said, now the breakfast room's down there. I went and had a breakfast. There were a few faces down there that I knew. After I finished breakfast, I walked out onto the footpath. The first step I took out of the foyer onto the footpath in the main street, I ran into a trainer that I knew. The trainer, without mentioning his name, he said, hello, what are you doing here? I said, oh, well, I've just come up. He said, and funny thing, this same trainer, quite a few years before that, he got hold of me and he said, listen, he said, what are you doing? I said, no. He said, would you come up to Walker for me? I said, where's Walker? He said, oh, it's way up north. He said, I'm taking he said, there's a rich maiden up there, up at Walker. He said, it's worth 10,000, he said, to the winner. He said, he said, I'm taking a runner up there. He said, it's unbeatable. He said, I've been trialling this horse in the dark. He said, nobody, he said, will get big odds this. And he was a very big punter, this trainer. Anyway, he said, I want you to come up. He said, and back it for me. I said, yeah. Well, I said, not a problem. So I said, how do I? He said, well, why don't you catch the plane? You catch a plane. I forget where we caught I caught a plane to. On the Peter Cook and his father were on the plane, a funny thing. And later on that day, Peter Cook, he dead heated on a thing that I backed that was favourite, and came back to the fence and he was circling around. Yes, Peter. I said, what? He said, I haven't won. He said, I haven't got beat. And he was 100% right. It took 5 minutes for the photo to go up, and it was a dead heat. But anyway, getting back to this runner that this trainer wanted me to back, he has stuck a brick in my hand. I said, Jesus Christ! I said, this is over the line, is it? He said, oh, we'll be winning. He said, nobody. I said, really? I said, well, what price? He said, oh, I don't know. He said, but just do your best and get it on. So I got the 10,000, and I said, well, this is going to be a bit of an effort here. But by the same token, there were at least 35 bookies. There'd be 35, even more bookies at the time. So I said, well, I'll just got to handle this as good as I can. Of course, there were no markets out anywhere. This horse was having its first start in the race. And I said, all right, the market went up. And they put the captains up there. They were the smartest captains of all times. They put up evening money on the field. I said, Jesus, I went and got hold of him. I said, well-kept secret, this, old son. He said, well, I said, they stuck it up evens. He said, it's good odds. I said, oh, gee. I said, but I thought no one knew about it. He said, oh, well, someone, no, I know. I said, well, he said, just put it on. I had the even 10,000 for him, jumped straight to the front, said, see you later, won me 180 miles, and that was I said, nobody knew about it. Christ Almighty, that was a well-kept secret. Anyway, it should have been 3s on, should have been 4s on, and it got the chocolates. That was the Walker story. But going back to Grafton, I'd walked out of at Grafton. That was a long time before this day at Grafton. I walked out of the pub, and there he was. He said, where? I said, I'm staying. He said, Darren, what are you doing staying here? I said, well, I came up last night. He said, we're around the corner in the motel there. It's a nice motel. He said, come and stay with us. I said, who? Yeah, who? He said, oh, Gordon Spinks. And, oh, I shouldn't have said that, but there's a few other hickey-hockeys there. Well, anyway, I went around, and next thing you know, after going to the races that day, went back to that motel. I took my stuff there, went back to the motel, went out with him, the trainer that night, and a few of the hickeys, and blah, blah, blah. Forget what happened that day. I stayed on. He talked me into staying on for the Grafton Cup. Of course, used to be run the week after. On the Wednesday, the Grafton Cup was run. Or what possibly could have even been the Thursday, I just forget. Well, anyway, I stayed on for the Grafton Cup, going to the Dogs every night, and fiddling and twiddling around, went out shooting roos a couple of times during the day. Anyway, I happened to, on the Grafton Cup meeting, carry one of the Hickey Hockey's bags into the track and carry his gear in and walk through the gate. And next thing you know, someone yelled out to the Hickey Hockey. He said, I said, he went, oh yeah. So I stood there and he went over and he had a conversation with the fella and he came back over and he said, I said, all right, well, I'll see you later, best of luck. I said, can you tip me a winner? He said, oh, I said, what was the story with that fella there? I said, he looks a smart sort of bloke. He said, oh, he's a trainer from Queensland. He's brought a thing down here. He asked me, did I have a ride in race 6 or whatever it was? And I didn't have a ride. He asked me would I ride it for him, the thing he'd brought down. And I said, well, I'm not having a ride, so of course I'll ride it for you. I said, oh, yeah, what did he say? He said, it'll win easily. I said, fair dinkum. I said, what's his name? He said, so and so and so and so. I said, I'll have something on this. And he said, oh, well, I said, well, what do you think yourself? So I don't want to be having anything on it. He said, I rode something for him here last year or wherever it was. And he said, he told me it was an unbeatable moral. He said, I'd have to trip over to get beat. He said, I gave it the best run you've ever seen and it couldn't get out of its own way. He said, I think the bloke is a very bad judge. I said, oh, that'll do me. I won't do anything. Of course, this runner was 7-1, but he was on later on the day. It jumped out. He couldn't make it go slow enough. Turned for home. He sneezed and it took off and it won me 4 lengths. It was 7-1. Never had a penny on it. That's one of my little stories from Grafton. Now we got to today at Randwick. Now at Randwick today, the track was good. The rail was in the normal position, and the wind never changed direction all day. It was out of the northwest, but it was fairly strong for race 1 and race 2 and race 3 and race 4 and race 5 and race 6. Eased off a little bit in race 7. Race 8 came around and we saw the dark clouds rolling in from the south, and the wind in the last race was around about the half strength that it was at its peak during the day. Now I think this is one of the reasons why they never went really hard in the last race, the 1,000-metre race. One of the reasons why the 2 leaders were able to, one of them was a favourite anyway, but the runner that led one off the fence was able to hang on well and only get beat a length. And I'm talking about Nuclear Class, who, by the way, they said the best buck was $26. I was 41 on the fence and I was 41 when they jumped. It held on and ran second, only beaten 1 length. So anyway, we'll get to that. We'll get to that later on. Now, this first race here today, they said there was 106.4 on the screen, and there was about 3 less in the marketplace, about 103. And well, look, every mug has got to be right sometimes, and I must admit I was right here. These 2 runners that crossed the line today, they also crossed the line together at Warwick Farm last start. I'm talking about Good Project and also Test a Shadow. Now, last start at Warwick Farm, as I say, there was only a split inch between them. I looked at that race last start at Warwick Farm and I could only keep on saying to myself, trust your eyes, trust your eyes. And I finish up coming up with a price at Warwick Farm when the 2, as I say, ran against each other last start, and Quinella. I said, if you run this race again, they'd be 2 to 1 a pair. And today, the betting was $4.60 out to $5 Good Project, who they said they were going to ride quieter, and it did lead. And the winner, Test a Shadow, who went up an $8 chance, got out to $10. So one was a 4 to 1 chance and the other one a 9 to 1 chance. I didn't think that there was entitled to be that much between them. And today, my stupid market that we came up with had a good project, a 9-2 chance, and the winner, Test a Shadow, a 5-1 chance. Well, of course, they might have even bet $11, but they most certainly bet 10, a 9-1 chance. And it's that third, 3 back on the fence, got around heels. It didn't lead good project. It, of course, crossed and led on the fence global domination, and good project sat on its outside. The Stipes did ask the rider, you said you were going to ride this quiet. He told them why he was up outside the lead. It jumped well. There was no pace. Anyway, after easing off their heels, Test a Shadow, it was able to run good project down and beat it by 0.2 of a length. And after getting a suck third on the fence Stratton, it ran third, beaten 3 lengths away. The first and second had plenty on them. The favourite in that race, another Al who sat in the 1-1. The rider said it was stirred up before the race. It had every possible chance. First and second were by far the best runs. Race 2, well, this was no good for the captains here. They said there was 101.1 on the screen, and in the marketplace only 93%. This was won by the recently gelded Weenholt, the runner trained by Mr. Moody, ridden by Bold Blake Shin. Who rode the first winner? Oh yes, Loose Loop Grace, yes, on Test a Shadow, 2 kilos off, trained by Mr. Paletti. He rode a good race. Weenholt, yes, well, they said the best luck was about $3.60. There was a mile of $4. As I say, we only gave 93% in this race, and it sat back in third last position. The runner that was possibly the best run in this race was the third horse, Mademoiselle, who was doing as well as after running third as first and second, I thought, on the line, if not a bit better. It led Mademoiselle coming across from barrier 5 in a field of 7, and the outsider of this field, Double Eagle, who ran second last, who was coming back 1,200 metres in distance from 2,400 to 1,400, or 26 to 14, whatever it was coming back well in distance. It took off midfield after it was sitting behind the pace. It took off and got to the lead, making Mademoiselle go a little bit faster than it wanted to before the turn. It dropped off. Mademoiselle looked like it was going to drop off after the winner, and others moved up, topping the rise, but it kicked back well on the inside, as I say, and the margins when they hit the line were only 0.2 by 0.5 of a length. The very easy in the market Downstown Charlie, who opened up $6.50 and was $12 given. I think they said the best luck was about $9 or $9. $12 given, starting $11. It settled down last on the fence, eased off heels, and just failed to catch Weenholt by 0.2 of a length. Of course, Downstown Charlie, if it would have been a wet track, it would have rounded these up well, but it still did run a good race, but didn't spend a penny in the run. The favourite in that race, Black Revolver, it sat 3 back on the fence. It was crowded for room at one stage, but I thought it went very, very disappointingly. Race 3, they said there was 107 on the screen in the marketplace for the captains in the marketplace, not for the robots betting the members and others who must take under the odds. In the marketplace, only 107 on the screen. This was won by the runner that ran into the wind, Tarrangower, taken straight to the lead by Sam Clipperton, sensible Sam Clipperton, who is trying to lose the 1.5 kilos before the end of his apprenticeship this season. Apprentices who, of course, don't outride their allowance before their apprentice apprenticeship finishes are more or less deemed, well, not top notch. But this boy, I must say, is riding a lot better than I thought he could ride. He went straight to the lead. The Avery, talking about a Pajero, came across after being a little bit wide earlier on and slightly missing the kick to sit on his outside. But the leader, as I say, who ran into the wind down the side, Charangower, had plenty of kick in him, and he held the favourite safely after getting a length and a half in front of him, topping the rise, to hold him off by 0.2 of a length. And coming from last was the Alfonso, settling well back in the field today, making up a lot of ground, ridden by this New Zealand apprentice R. Hutchins, to run into third hole, beaten 1.2 lengths. They got away from all of the others. The stablemate to the Alfonso, this Hufflepuff, the rider said that it needs wet conditions to enhance its chances. The others had their chance, the first three being the best runs. Race 4, here on the screen, you think they wouldn't have fair dinkum want to call the coppers. The robots here on the screen, there was only 97.7. They must have been saying, those imbecile bookies down there in the main ring, are they betting with counterfeit? It was a little bit less for us, 2% less, about 95.5 is all we gave. These were the flux. Done Nothing Wrong, who Mr. Waller and more or less said that the rider didn't ride to his instructions, not leading on Done Nothing Wrong. You couldn't give it away. It went from $4.40 out to $6.50. Would the owners of Done Nothing Wrong please step forward? They weren't there. Raining. At one stage you could lay it at $4, but at the finish it was $4.40, $3.50 out to $4 taken into $3.80 back to $4.40, 20 out to 30 Miss Zenzilla. The next runner, Saigon Tea. Now the rider of Saigon Tea, Jay Collette, he was quizzed by the Stipes on his ride. In the next race after this, just the opposite happened to what happened here. Well, I'll explain what happened. Saigon Tea, Mr. Waller wanted it to be ridden closer today, but it settled down in last position on the fence, and on its outside was the stablemate. Mr. Waller got the trifecta here. He had three runners, and they ran first, second, and third. I'm talking about a Specific Choice, who settled down on the outside of Saigon Tea in last position. When they turned for home, Saigon Tea went up on the inside of runners, close to the fence, whereas the winner, Specific Choice, went around them. And he was slightly held up, getting off heels. The margin was 3 lengths at the finish, but Saigon Tea, he would have been better off at coming down the side of the 800 metre mark, easing around the heels of, I think it was Miss Zenzella, and getting on the back of the winner, and maybe finishing. I don't think he would have beaten the winner, but he certainly would have finished a lot closer. He went to the inside, the winner went to the out around them. Now, Miss Zenzella was 20 out to 30. Saigon Tea was $2.80 out to $3.20, back into $2.70. King Utah was always $41. Now, the winner was $7 into $4.60, 6s to 7 to 2. Jarali was 80 out to 100, and Planetarium was 20 into 17, 20 to 1 into 7, $21 into $17. After easing off the heels, turning for home and coming to the outside, Specific Choice, maybe the firm going helped it. It sprinted well today when he T. Aglin. No, it wasn't. Oh, yes, it was T. Aglin. Got it rolling, and as I say, won by 3, but the second horse should have been closer. With plenty of questions asked about the 2 rides on the 2 stablemates. Race 5, they said there was 101.8, a little bit less than the marketplace. It was nearly spot on here. We just got over the 100, maybe 100.5 or 101, about the same as what was on the screen. Bagman, well, what am I saying? Was without giving the flux there, it was $4 out to $7. Settled down in last position, made up plenty of ground. But the winner here was its stablemate, I'm Imposing, who began awkwardly and was held up slightly in the run. But when the run did present itself, he went straight through the comics T. Aglen again on I'm Imposing, and it showed a really good turn of foot, sprinted through the middle of them, as I say, and got clear. At the finish, he was full bore, only finished up winning by a length. Coming from well back in the field was Single, making up plenty of ground, but never really looking the winner. The stablemate to the winner, Disciple, sat midfield, one off the fence, had every chance, plugged away, and its stablemate, Bagman, was hard ridden at the 800 metres and kept on coming down the outside in the 4th hole, beaten 1.3 lengths. The favourite here, once again, without blowing my trumpet, I thought it was Layback Larry was some sort of risk in this race. Of course, we know that Gay owns the lead. I suppose, well, I must admit, I thought it would just about cross and get to the lead. Or, well, I'm wrong in saying that. I thought it would lead. But then I started thinking to myself, you know, when this runner resumed first up last time, it belted up the worst team of horses you've ever seen. There were quite a few credential runners in this race, and I just couldn't see them giving a Hieronymus handing the race to him on a plate. And as it turned out, that was the case because it couldn't lead. It went through and led Collar, the rank outsider of the field. It ran last, beaten 13.5 lengths. After $81 was given it, it started about 40 or 50 to 1. There was a little bit of section for it. And on its outside was Keep Cool, the second favourite. After $6 was given out, he started 5. And Layback Larry did get a good run after that, sucking up behind that pair. And then there was another break to the rest of the field. But, as we know, Gay's runners are very well suited by finding the money in either a slow run race or when the pace is just right, and being able, out of trouble, and being able to being fit, and the bone and muscle business and all that, what we talk about all the time, sort of keep on rolling along. But when it didn't lead, it was always going to have a hard task, and I was pleased to see it sit where it did. And after they topped the rise, the section that I was able to pluck out of it, I was able to keep. And the winner, I must say, was a very, very good result for the captains, because we put it up a 10 to 1 chance, $11, and it was $17 at the end of betting, with well, the favourite by being by far the best backed. Bagman was fairly hard to lay, $4 out to $5 out to $7. Well, the others, what am I talking about? Eaglestein was $7.50 to $13, not a halfpenny for it. I'm Imposing, not a penny for it. It was well back, Keep Cool after $6 starting 5. Single, you could lay it at $8.50. You could lay Disciple at $9, although hard to lay it at that price. They took $81.61 Collar, and the favourite, after opening up $2.80, got out to $3.20. I was a bit lucky. I never wound the $2.80 off at any stage, and it started that price. And fortunate for me, every steam tug's got to be right every now and again. It doesn't matter how bloody stupid you are, your turn comes, and mine might have been today. Race 6, 106 on the screen, 101, 5 less in the marketplace. Who won this race? Forever Crazy. He rode. Now, the race prior, we saw oh yes, go through the middle of them. What race was I going to say here? Oh yes, the race where we saw earlier on the day. What am I trying to say here? Am I going? Well, I am stark raving mad. I know. Look, yeah. Well, in race 4, where we saw specific choice come around and the Saigon T stick to the fence. Well, this race here, we saw Forever Crazy. Will do the same thing. What am I talking about? Forever Crazy sat back in second last position on the outside of Acapella, its stablemate, ridden by the New Zealand apprentice. Aboard the winner again was T. Agland. Acapella was slightly held up. It ran 5th, only beaten 1.4 lengths. And T. Agland eased off their heels, turning for home on Forever Crazy. It was 3rd up today, and he was able to show a very good turn of foot, turning for home. Sprinted up out wide after they topped the rise and more or less had them covered. He only won by 0.8 of a length, running down the favourite, Talashan, who is fairly dour. And after sitting in second position early on outside first class ticket, finally went to the lead with Adorable, who was caught wide outside, pressing it to that position. And they settled down in the lead. And, Adorable slightly pulled in the run, copped a slide check at the start, which had no effect, and it held on. Well, it was only beaten 2 odd point lengths, but held on not as well as I thought it would. The favourite, Talashan, it was doing as good, if not better, than any runner on the line, but it, showed at Warwick Farm when it won last start, it's fairly dour. They would have been better off sitting off the pace and winding up with more pace on in the race instead of leading, and also having to run into the wind. It's very easy now, but of course, Talashan, I marked a clear favourite, but when you looked at its form, it did beat last start at Warwick Farm Papillon Rouge, who went absolutely disgraceful after starting a 7-4 chance favourite at Canterbury on Wednesday, sitting 4th on the fence and having every possible chance. So that didn't make its form look any good. And the start before that, when it won at Randwick, might have been the Kensington track on the wet track. When they finished out in the middle of the track, she's Bubbles went around who ran 4th in that race, went around at Grafton during the week. It might have been on the Thursday or the Wednesday, I just forget, and it had every possible chance, and it ran last, making the form, I suppose, now it's very easy now, but we all knew this before the race, of Talashan not that good. So I suppose it's very easy after the ball, after started the 5-4 favourite, started $2.25, hard to get. You wouldn't. The best luck was $2.50. There was as much as $2.80 given in the outside ring, it might have even started less than $2. No, it was $2. It was a 5-4 chance when they jumped, and as I say, it's easy now. But looking at that form of those two runners that I mentioned, didn't I suppose make it a 5-4 chance in this race. But it's always very easy after the ball. That race, when they crossed the line, there were the 10 runners, and there was only the 3-length margin between the 10 runners when they hit the line, including a 300-1 chance, and that was number 10. They returned it only 100-1 strategic flight, number 10. It was 300 at the races, not 100. It was 300, and it was only beaten 2.9 lengths. So it just goes to say the form in that race might be a little bit compressed. Race like they were at the finish. Race 7, they said there was 113.6 on the screen. Now, you know that's wrong straight away. There was a good 8 less in the marketplace, only about 105. And here, the Stipes said to Blake Shin, just as well you won this race, son, because we would have said that you erred in not going to the inside or the outside before you did on this runner. And we would have been asking you a lot of questions. They still asked him questions, and he explained it, and they accepted it, and he got home by a fair income. Well, it was that close to a death heat, it wasn't funny. And the favourite was it was one of the good old head up, head down situations. One stride before, not even one stride, a half a stride before the post. Of course, the favourite had its head down and was in front, but right on the post, his head went up, and Babiro on the inside, who was close to the fence after switching inside runners, his head was down, and there was literally an eighth of an inch, if not a 16th of an inch in it. The judge saying, I can find a margin here and put Babiro's name up in the frame. The favourite sat 3 wide without cover all the way down the side. Could have been its undoing. It would have been running into the wind, as was the leader, Snitsky, who finished up running fifth, only beaten 2.2 lengths. And the third horse here, who was only beaten 0.3 of a length, trying to run 1,300 metres, No Bad Blood. If it goes straight and doesn't hang out under pressure, No Bad Blood, if it's able to steer a very straight course after getting past Snitsky topping the rise or turning for home, there's a good chance it might have won by a slender margin, and the other two might have been just behind it. But it hung out under pressure from about the 100-metre mark on, losing that little bit of ground, and the other two getting up inside it. And as I say, the margins were 0.1 by 0.3, and the others had their chance. Wouldn't it be nice, who is being ridden differently now, again was ridden like it was at Rose Hill. After that, when the gates opened, it was eased back to third last position, came off heels, turning for home, and made up plenty of ground. Only running fourth, beaten 1.5 lengths. The others more or less had their chance. We came to the last, and as I say, the last race, the wind had dropped, and which made it a lot easier for the leaders, I think. The second horse was a 40-to-1 chance, not $26, Nuclear Class. It ran second after sitting half a length in front of the favourite, Miss Alibi, all the way to the turn, who drew barrier 1. It ran third. Couldn't get up, couldn't beat Nuclear Class. Couldn't get, got up inside at one stage, but the Nuclear Class fought on very well. There was a late scratching in this race, as there was earlier on in another race. We're talking about average here. The runner was scratched earlier on after it was Tax Me If You Can in race 7. After they inspected it, it kicked out in the barrier stalls, and after it was inspected after the race, found to be lame. And here we had Average, who was extremely well backed in the last race, from as much as $15 or $16 into $11 towards the end of betting. It had hit its head in the barrier, and it was a late scratching. They said they were going to ride Hold a Sunset with cover, and they did. Instead of going forward, it sat in fourth position with cover behind the line of 3 leaders. It led on the fence, half led on the fence, Miss Alibi. The second horse on its outside, Nuclear Class, and 3 wide outside those was Can Gistar, and tucked in behind Can Gistar was Hold a Sunset. On the fence behind it, Beckon, and so forth and so forth. The winner was in between Hold a Sunset and also Beckon, and when they turned for home, ridden by bold Blake Shin, was able to ease off heels, and he got slightly held up, but when he got to the outside, he sprinted a bit better than the others and won by a length at the finish. The way the race was run, the 2 runners that were eased at the start were the well-backed Worldly Impact, who was $5.50 into $4.60, back out to $4.80 I was at the finish. The favourite, after opening up $3.20, a 9-to-4 chance, Miss Alibi, got out to $4.40 I saw on the fence before the end of betting, but only started $4, plenty of $4.20 given. Held on well, but was entitled to, because it was up near the lead, not having to run into a strong headwind like the other races, and also they didn't go that fast. The two runners that were eased in this race after they jumped eased from the barrier were the fourth or fifth horse, and that was Worldly Impact, who was taken whole, just to let flop out of the barriers and go back to clear last, and also from a wide alley Magical Lady, who ran last, made a bit of a spurt when they topped the rise, but ran last, only beaten 4 lengths by the same token when they hit the line running last, 4 lengths between the field. It sprinted fairly well down the outside, Worldly Impact, but they didn't go real hard, and it was a bit of an effort to make up the ground the way the race was run. That was about the meeting. I hope if you were wire netting, you had some success and finished on the right side of the ledger. Good evening.